What do you do when the most important day of your life turns into the nightmare you never saw coming? I had dreamed of this moment for years. The perfect wedding, the perfect life ahead. The ballroom sparkled with light. The guests were smiling, and I was marrying the man I thought I'd spend forever with. But as I looked at Matt, standing beside me, his smile seemed distant, like a stranger wearing his face. A flicker of doubt crossed my mind, but I pushed it away, telling myself it was just wedding jitters. Little did I know, my life was about to unravel in the most unexpected way, and nothing would ever be the same again. Laughter and the clinking of glasses filled the air in the grand ballroom of the Crystal Lake Hotel. I stood near the dance floor in my white lace dress, still processing the reality of the day. Everything appeared flawless. The soft, twinkling fairy lights, pink and white roses on every table, and the beaming faces of our friends and family. "Amy, you look absolutely stunning," my best friend Jill said, pulling me into a hug, careful not to wrinkle my dress. "I still can't believe my best friend is married." I smiled at her, but something felt off. Matt, my husband of just 3 hours, had been acting strangely since the ceremony. He kept checking his phone, whispering to his brother in the corner, and every time I caught his eye, he quickly looked away. "Everything okay?" Jill must have noticed my growing concern. I forced another smile. "Yeah, just wedding day jitters, I guess." The DJ called for our first dance. Matt appeared by my side, taking my hand. His palm was sweaty, and I could feel him trembling slightly as we swayed to our song, Perfect by Ed Sheeran. I tried to meet his gaze. "Matt, is something wrong?" I whispered. "You seem different." "Everything's fine," he snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "Just a lot going on today." The song ended, and Matt practically ran to the bar. I watched him down a glass of whiskey in one gulp. This wasn't like him. He usually preferred beer and never drank hard liquor. My stomach twisted. That's when I noticed his brother Steve talking rapidly on the phone near the exit, gesturing wildly. Matt joined him, and their faces turned pale as they looked at something on Steve's phone. I started to walk toward them, but then my mother-in-law, Mary, intercepted me. "Amy, darling, shouldn't you be mingling with the guests?" Her smile was forced, her eyes darting nervously between me and Matt. "I need to speak with Matt for a moment," I said, trying to move around her. "He's busy with some wedding details," she said, gripping my arm a little too firmly. "Come, let's get you a drink." But I was done being kept in the dark. Something was wrong, and I was tired of being blocked from my husband. I pulled away from Mary and walked straight toward Matt and Steve. As I got closer, I overheard fragments of their conversation. "We have to tell her," Steve was saying, urgency in his voice. "There's no way to hide it anymore." "Tell me what?" I asked, my voice cutting through the tension, making both of them jump. Matt spun around, his face a mixture of panic and something else, shame. He was gripping another glass of whiskey, his knuckles white. Steve quickly pocketed his phone, avoiding my gaze. "Matt, what's going on?" I demanded, my heart racing in my chest. "Amy," Matt's voice cracked. "I can explain." The knot in my stomach tightened. 20 feet away, the dance floor was full of happy guests. The DJ was playing Sweet Caroline, and my bridesmaids were taking selfies. But right here, in this bubble of tension, my perfect wedding day was about to shatter. I had no idea that the next words out of Matt's mouth would change everything, or that in less than 5 minutes I'd be wearing his drink instead of my smile. "I lost our house down payment." Matt's words hit me like a physical blow. "I got into some trouble with betting, and I thought I could double it." My mind went blank. The house down payment? We'd been saving for 2 years, every extra shift, every bonus, all towards our dream home. "What do you mean you lost it?" "It's not just that," Steve cut in, looking at his brother. "Matt, tell her everything." Matt took another long drink, his hands shaking. "I borrowed money from some people. Bad people. They're calling it due now." "How much?" My voice was barely a whisper. $50,000. The room started spinning. $50,000? Our savings had been $35,000 for the house, which meant, "Did you take out loans?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Credit cards," he mumbled. "In your name." The music seemed to fade away. In my name? He'd committed fraud, using my identity, my perfect credit score, my financial future gone. And he'd waited until after we were married to tell me. "When?" I demanded, my voice rising. "When did you do this?" "Amy, please keep your voice down." Mary appeared again, smiling nervously at nearby guests. "We can discuss this later." "You knew?" I turned to her, realization dawning. "You knew about this?" Mary's smile tightened. "I was trying to protect my son. We were going to fix this after the wedding." "Fix it?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Fix identity theft? Fix gambling addiction? Fix lying to me until after I signed the marriage certificate? Matt grabbed my arm. "Amy, please, I need you to understand. These guys, they're serious. They came to the house yesterday." "Yesterday?" My voice cracked. "You knew about this threat yesterday and still went through with the wedding?" "I love you," he pleaded. "I didn't want to lose you." "Love?" I pulled away from him. "Love is trust, Matt. Love is respect. This is manipulation." "You're being dramatic," Mary snapped. "Every marriage has its problems. You need to stand by your husband." That's when something in me snapped. All the anger, betrayal, and hurt crystallized into a cold, clear fury. Stand by him while he ruins my life? While he lies to me? While he steals from me? Each question came out louder than the last. People were starting to stare. The DJ had lowered the music. Matt's face was red with embarrassment and alcohol. "You're making a scene," he hissed, raising his glass to his lips. "A scene?" I stepped closer. "You want a scene? How's this for a scene? I want an annulment. This marriage is over." What happened next seemed to play out in slow motion. Matt's face contorted with rage. He raised his glass and threw his whiskey directly in my face. The alcohol stung my eyes, soaked my makeup, and dripped down my white dress. The room went silent. Someone gasped. I stood there, dripping and humiliated, but somehow feeling stronger than ever. "Thank you," I said quietly, wiping my eyes. "Thank you, Matt," I said, looking at him utterly confused. "Yes, thank you for showing me exactly who you are before I wasted any more of my life on you." I turned to the stunned crowd, my mascara running down my cheeks, but my head held high. "I'm sorry, everyone, but the reception is over, at least for me. I've just discovered that my new husband is a gambling addict who committed identity theft and fraud in my name. Oh, and as you can see, he has anger issues." The silence was deafening. Mary was practically purple with rage. Matt stood frozen, empty glass still in his hand. And me? I felt strangely free. "Please enjoy the rest of the food and drinks. Consider it a party celebrating my narrow escape." With that, I walked toward the exit. Jill rushed to my side with my purse and phone. Behind me, I could hear the chaos erupting, but I didn't look back. My wedding day had turned into a nightmare, but tomorrow will be the first day of my new life. The drive home was a blur. Jill insisted on coming with me, which was good because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. My wedding dress was still damp and reeking of whiskey. Mascara tracks had dried on my cheeks, and my carefully styled hair had fallen flat. "I can't believe I didn't see it," I said, staring out the passenger window. "All the signs were there." "Don't do that to yourself," Jill replied, keeping her eyes on the road. "Master manipulators are good at hiding things. That's what they do." My phone kept buzzing. Messages from guests, missed calls from Matt and his family, and social media notifications flooding in. I turned it off. I couldn't deal with any of that right now. When we reached my apartment, the one I'd kept just for myself, despite Mary's protests, Jill helped me out of my ruined wedding dress. Standing there in just my slip, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. "You know what's crazy?" I said, wiping away the last traces of makeup. "I feel more relieved than sad." Jill sat on the edge of my bathtub. "That's because you're stronger than you think. Most people wouldn't have walked out like that. They would have made excuses, hidden it. But not you." I changed into sweatpants and an old t-shirt and curled up on my couch with a cup of tea. Jill ordered pizza, and we sat together in silence, letting everything sink in. Around midnight, my curiosity got the better of me, and I turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls, 156 text messages, 23 voicemails, and 312 social media notifications. "Someone recorded it," Jill said, holding up her phone. There it was, my wedding day meltdown, now going viral on TikTok. The comments were surprisingly supportive. "Queen energy right there." She handled that with so much grace. "This is what standing up for yourself looks like." I couldn't help but laugh. It was either that or cry. That night, sleep was nearly impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Matt's face as he threw the drink, saw Mary's smug expression, and heard Steve's warnings too late. The weight of the financial mess ahead kept pressing down on me. Jill stayed over, crashing on my couch. Around 3 a.m., I heard her talking quietly on the phone, probably to her boyfriend Mark, who's a lawyer. I made a mental note to call him in the morning. As the first light of dawn crept in, I finally dozed off, only to be startled awake by my phone ringing at 7 a.m. I almost declined it, but the number wasn't Matt's or anyone I recognized. "Hello?" My voice was rough from crying and lack of sleep. "Is this Amy Mitchell?" A man's voice asked, professional, serious. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Detective James Torres with the Financial Crimes Unit. We need to talk about your husband, Michael Collins. You might want to sit down for this." I pressed the speaker button so Jill could hear. Something in his tone told me this conversation was going to change everything. "I'm already sitting," I said. And after yesterday, I doubt anything could surprise me. The detective's next words proved me wrong. "Mrs. Mitchell, we've been investigating your husband for the past 8 months. He continued. "He's not just involved in gambling. We believe he's part of a larger money laundering operation." Jill grabbed my hand as I sat there, stunned. "Money laundering?" I repeated. "That's impossible. Matt works at an accounting firm." "Exactly," the detective interrupted. "His position there made it perfect. We've traced over $2 million in suspicious transactions through accounts he's managed." The room started spinning. $2 million? The house down payment suddenly seemed like pocket change. "Yesterday's events at your wedding," Torres continued, "accelerated our timeline. We need your cooperation." I let out a bitter laugh. "Cooperation? I just found out my husband stole my identity. Now you're telling me he's some kind of criminal mastermind?" "Not the mastermind," Torres corrected. "That would be your mother-in-law, Mary Collins." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Mary? The Stevie woman who'd criticized my choice of wedding flowers and insisted I take Matt's last name? "We have evidence suggesting Mary has been running this operation for years," Torres explained. "Multiple businesses, shell companies, all laundering money for some very dangerous people. Matt was just her latest recruit." Jill spoke up. "That explains why she was so pushy about the wedding happening quickly." "Exactly," Torres agreed. "Once you were married, it would be harder to get you to testify. Plus, they could potentially move money through joint accounts." My head was pounding. The gambling debts were probably real, but also a convenient cover story. Makes him look like a victim rather than a willing participant. I thought about all the times Mary had helped with our wedding planning, insisting on certain vendors, specific accounts for the gift registry, and even our honeymoon location. "The whole wedding was a setup, wasn't it?" I asked, feeling sick. "We believe so," Torres confirmed. "But your public confrontation yesterday complicated their plans significantly." "So what do you need from me?" I asked, running my fingers through my tangled hair. "We need you to play along just for a few days. Act as if you might forgive him. We need to track where the money's going. And my phone beeped with another call. Matt's number. That's him now, I said. Perfect timing, Torres replied. Remember, you're upset but willing to listen. We'll be recording everything. I took a deep breath and switched calls. Amy? Matt's voice was shaky. Baby, please don't hang up. I can explain everything. I caught Jill's eye. She nodded encouragingly. I'm listening, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Can we meet? Please. There's so much you don't understand. Mom has a plan to fix everything. Of course she did. Where? I asked, knowing Detective Torres was probably already tracing this call. The coffee shop on 4th Street, in an hour. Please, Amy. I love you. Those 3 words that used to make my heart flutter now made my skin crawl. 1 hour, I agreed, then hung up. Detective Torres came back on. Perfect. We'll have officers in place. Whatever you do, don't let them know you've talked to us. After ending the call, I sat there in silence for a moment, processing everything. Well, Jill finally said, this is not how I expected your wedding weekend to go. I stood up, heading for the shower. Me neither. But you know what? If I'm going to help take down a money laundering operation, I at least want to look good doing it. I arrived at the coffee shop exactly on time, wearing jeans and a simple black sweater, no trace of the bride I'd been yesterday. Detective Torres's team had fitted me with a tiny microphone hidden under my collar. Jill waited in her car across the street, just in case. Matt was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He'd ordered my usual, a vanilla latte with oat milk. The familiar gesture felt like a punch to the gut. Amy. He stood up quickly, dark circles under his eyes. Thank you for coming. I sat down without hugging him. You said you wanted to explain. I do, but first... He glanced around nervously, then slid a folder across the table. Mom put this together. It's a plan to fix everything. I opened the folder, my hands steady despite my racing heart. Inside were documents for new credit cards, bank accounts, and even a passport, all with slightly different versions of my name. What is this? I asked, although I already knew. A fresh start. Matt leaned forward, speaking quietly. We transfer everything to these new accounts. The debts, the loans, they all disappear. We can still have our dream life. By committing more fraud? It's not fraud, it's... He paused, searching for words. It's financial restructuring. Mom does it all the time for her clients. I thought about Detective Torres's words. Mom does it all the time. Of course she did. Tell me the truth, Matt, I said, meeting his eyes. How long have you been helping your mother launder money? He flinched like I'd slapped him. What? No, that's not... His voice trailed off as he saw my expression. The gambling debts are real, he finally said. But the rest, it started small, just helping Mom with some accounts, moving money around. She said it was for tax purposes. And the identity theft? Was that her idea too? Matt had the decency to look ashamed. We needed clean accounts, ones that couldn't be traced back to us. Your credit score was perfect. So you used me, I said, my voice cold as ice. The whole wedding was just a cover, wasn't it? No. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away, disgust rippling through me. I love you, Amy. The wedding was real, but Mom said once we were married, everything would be easier. Legally, you know. Easier. Easier to steal from me, you mean? We can protect you, another voice interjected. I turned to see Mary slipping into the seat next to Matt. Family protects family. Is that what you call this? I waved a hand at the folder in front of me. Protection? That's exactly what it is. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. The people Matt owes money to, they're not nice people. But I have connections, ways to make problems disappear. Like the $2 million you made disappear through Matt's accounting firm? Both their faces drained of color. Mary's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. "Who have you been talking to?" she demanded. I slowly stood up, collecting the folder.
You know what the funny thing is? Yesterday, when Matt threw that drink in my face, I thought that was the worst moment of my life. But now, I realize it was the best thing that could have happened.
"Amy, please!"
Matt started to rise. "Sit down!" Mary hissed, grabbing his arm, her gaze darting around the cafe. "Too late," I said, as Detective Torres and his team emerged from various corners of the cafe.
"The game is over."
Mary's face twisted in fury.
"You stupid girl. You have no idea what you've done." I stood tall as the officers approached, their badges out. "I know exactly what I've done. I've chosen myself." As they handcuffed Matt and Mary, Matt called out one last time. "I did love you." I paused at the door, turning back to him. "No, Matt. You loved what you could use me for. There's a difference." Outside, Jill was waiting with open arms. Through the coffee shop window, I saw Matt and Mary being led away in handcuffs.
"You okay?"
Jill asked. I took a deep breath of fresh air. You know what? For the first time since yesterday, I am. The weeks following the coffee shop arrest felt like living in a thriller movie. Detective Torres kept me updated as the investigation unfolded. The rabbit hole went deeper than anyone imagined. "We've uncovered 12 shell companies," he told me during one of our meetings. Mary was laundering money for 3 different criminal organizations. The wedding venue was a front business. The honeymoon resort, Stevie thing. I sat in his office, looking at photos of my wedding venue. So even our first dance was on dirty money. The good news is, he shuffled some papers. Because you cooperated and were an unknowing victim, all the fraudulent accounts in your name will be cleared. Your credit score should recover within a few months. But it wasn't just the legal aftermath I had to deal with. Every day brought new challenges. Returning the wedding gifts was a nightmare of explanations and awkward conversations. "No, I don't need the toaster." "Yes, I'm sure." "No, we're not working things out." The viral video of the wedding incident spawned dozens of reaction videos, memes, and even a few marriage counselors using it as an example in their TikTok posts. My phone kept buzzing with messages from strangers. "You're so brave, girl. You dodged a bullet. Can I interview you for my podcast?" I declined all interviews, but I did start a private blog to process everything. Writing about my experience became surprisingly therapeutic. 1 month after the arrest, I received a letter from Matt from jail. "Dear Amy, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. The truth is, I was trapped in Mom's web long before I met you. I thought I could protect you from it all. I was wrong. I'm testifying against Mom and her partners. It's the right thing to do, even if it's too late. Matt." I never replied. Some bridges are better left burned. Mary's trial was set for spring. The prosecution had mountains of evidence, including recordings from my wedding and the coffee shop meeting. My testimony wouldn't even be needed. "How are you doing?" Jill asked one evening as we sat on my apartment balcony, sharing a bottle of wine. I thought about it. "You know what's weird? I'm grateful." She looked skeptical. "Think about it. If Matt hadn't thrown that drink, if he hadn't lost control, I might have spent years trapped in their scheme. That moment of violence saved me from something much worse." Jill raised her glass. "To bad men with poor impulse control." I laughed. "To new beginnings." 6 months later, I stood in front of my new apartment building, holding the keys. I'd used the money I'd saved for the honeymoon to make a down payment. It was small, but it was mine. No fraud, no schemes, no lies. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Mary had been sentenced to 15 years. Matt got 5, with the possibility of parole for cooperating. Their entire empire had crumbled, all because of one thrown drink at a wedding. That evening, as I unpacked boxes in my new home, I found my wedding album, still unopened. I thought about throwing it away, but instead, I placed it on my bookshelf. "Why keep it?" Jill had asked when she saw it. "As a reminder," I explained, "that sometimes the worst moments in our lives can be turning points towards something better." I opened my laptop and looked at my blog's latest post. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over when my husband threw a drink in my face at our wedding. Today, I realize it was the beginning. Sometimes life's biggest blessings come disguised as our worst moments. Trust your instincts, stand your ground, and never be afraid to walk away from a bad situation, even if you're wearing a wedding dress when you do it. The post already had thousands of likes and comments, women sharing their own stories of escape, of starting over, of choosing themselves. 1 year after my disastrous wedding, I stood confidently in front of a crowd at a women's empowerment conference. The viral video from my wedding day played on the screen behind me, but this time I didn't flinch or look away. "People often ask me if I regret getting married," I began, scanning the room. "And the answer is no. I regret not recognizing the red flags sooner. But that day, that moment when everything fell apart, was the very moment everything fell into place. The investigation had come to an end, and Mary's empire had completely crumbled, revealing dozens of fraudulent businesses. Matt was still in prison, writing letters I refused to read. My credit score had fully recovered, and the nightmare of identity theft was officially behind me. "The thing about rock bottom," I continued, "is that it shows you exactly who you are. When my husband threw that drink in my face, I had two choices: stay and accept it, or walk away and choose myself. I chose myself, and my blog, which had initially started as a personal outlet, had transformed into a support community for women escaping toxic relationships. Every day I received messages from women sharing their stories, finding strength through mine. "I left him yesterday. Your story gave me courage. I was afraid to start over at 40, but you showed me it's possible. Thank you for showing me what strength looks like." Jill, who sat in the front row with a beaming smile, had been with me through every step of the journey, through legal battles, sleepless nights, and the darkest days when even getting out of bed seemed impossible. Today, she was watching me transform my pain into purpose. "People often ask me what happened to the wedding dress," I said, smiling softly. "I didn't trash it. I didn't burn it. Instead, I donated it to a charity that helps survivors of domestic violence start new lives. Because sometimes the best thing we can do with our pain is use it to help others heal." Life had unfolded in unexpected ways. The dream house I'd saved for became a cozy apartment I loved. The perfect marriage I'd envisioned turned into a powerful journey of self-discovery. The happily ever after I once imagined became something far richer, a story of resilience. Just last week, I received a wedding invitation. I shared it with the audience. "My cousin's getting married, and she asked if it would be uncomfortable for me to attend. I told her I'd be honored. Because a failed wedding didn't break me, it made me stronger." I touched the small key necklace around my neck, a reminder of the apartment I bought on my own, the life I built from scratch. "So here's what I learned from having a drink thrown in my face at my wedding," I said, my voice steady. "Sometimes the most painful moments are doorways. Sometimes public humiliation is public liberation. And sometimes, just sometimes, the worst day of your life becomes the first day of your best life." The audience erupted into applause. I saw tears in some eyes, recognition in others. My story had become more than just a viral video. It had become a beacon of hope. That evening, alone in my apartment, I sat down at my laptop and opened a new page to write one final blog post about my wedding day. The cursor blinked on the blank page and I typed, "Dear future me, today marks 1 year since you walked away from a marriage that began with betrayal and ended with a thrown drink. 1 year since you chose yourself over security, truth over comfort, dignity over appearances. You lost a husband but found yourself. You lost a dream but gained a purpose. You lost a wedding day, but gained a lifetime of wisdom. And to anyone reading this who is standing where I stood 1 year ago, afraid to walk away, afraid to start over, afraid to choose yourself. Remember this: the worst moment of your life can become the moment that saves your life. The end of your story can become the beginning of your legacy, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, even if you're wearing a wedding dress when you do it. Here's to new beginnings, unexpected strength, and the beauty of choosing yourself. Love, Amy. Have you ever had to walk away from something you thought was perfect, only to discover that letting go was the best decision you could have made? How do we find the strength to choose ourselves when the world expects us to stay? Amy's wedding day quickly turned into a nightmare when her new husband, Matt, revealed that he had gambled away their house down payment and committed identity theft. As she confronted him, her perfect day crumbled in front of her, and she was forced to make a painful decision: walk away or stay trapped in a lie. With the support of her best friend Jill, Amy chose herself, leaving the wedding reception and cutting ties with Matt. What followed was a whirlwind of investigations, the exposure of Matt's criminal involvement, and a viral moment of public empowerment. Amy's journey from victim to victor led her to rebuild her life on her own terms, embracing the strength she never knew she had. Now, she's sharing her story with others, empowering women to walk away from toxic relationships and choose their own futures. Amy's experience is a powerful example of reclaiming control in the face of betrayal. At first, she was devastated, humiliated, and overwhelmed by the reality of her marriage unraveling just hours after the wedding. But as the truth came to light, something shifted within her. Rather than succumbing to shame or trying to make excuses for Matt's behavior, she chose to confront the situation head-on. Her decision to walk away wasn't just an act of self-preservation, it was a declaration of self-worth. Amy understood that staying in a toxic relationship would only perpetuate the cycle of manipulation and self-doubt. The public nature of her confrontation, the viral video, and the subsequent investigation were catalysts for her personal growth. By sharing her story, Amy transformed her pain into empowerment, turning what was meant to break her into the foundation of a new, stronger life. This shift from being a victim of circumstances to an active participant in her own healing is what makes Amy's story so powerful. She learned that true strength lies in the ability to choose oneself, even when it means walking away from everything she thought she wanted. Have you ever faced a moment when you had to choose your dignity over comfort? What was that decision like, and how did it change your life? What do you think can the worst moments in our lives really lead to the best things? Have you ever had a moment where you had to let go of something or someone in order to move forward? I'd love to hear your stories. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring journeys of self-discovery. Sometimes, choosing yourself is the bravest thing you can do.
The smell of burnt sugar filled my parents' dining room, but it wasn't coming from any of my baking experiments. It was the acrid stench of another one of my dreams going up in flames. I'm Sawyer, and I've spent 29 years watching my younger brother's half-baked schemes get served up with a heaping side of parental approval, while my own ambitions got tossed in the trash. A bakery? My father's fork clattered against his plate. You want to throw away your finance career to sell cupcakes? It's not just cupcakes, Dad. I straightened my spine, gripping my water glass to keep my hands from shaking. I've done the market research. There's no artisanal bakery in this part of town, and with my business background. Speaking of business, my mother cut in, beaming at my brother across the table. Kyson, tell your sister about your new venture. Kyson lounged back in his chair, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. It's gonna be huge. We're talking cryptocurrency meets social media meets. Mom, Dad, please. I set down my glass before I could crack it. I didn't come here for Kyson's elevator pitch. I came to tell you I'm using my bonus to open Sweet Victory Bakery. Honey. Mom reached across the table, her fingers brushing my wrist. We know you love baking, but it's just a hobby. Kyson's new platform could revolutionize, like his dating app revolutionized things. The words shot out before I could stop them. Or his subscription box service, or his... Those were learning experiences, Dad snapped. At least your brother has vision. You're talking about throwing away a six-figure salary to play Betty Crocker. I'm not playing at anything. I pulled out my phone, pulling up the business plan I'd spent months perfecting. Look at these projections. I've already found the perfect location and my friend Tiara. Your bonus could really help Kyson get his new venture off the ground, Mom said softly. Family should support family. I looked at Kyson, who was typing away on his phone, probably tweeting about his next big thing. He hadn't even bothered to ask what kind of bakery I wanted to open. You're right, Mom. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Family should support family. That's why I came here tonight, hoping you'd finally support me. Sawyer, sit down, Dad ordered. We're not finished discussing this. Actually, we are. I grabbed my purse. I signed the lease this morning. The bonus is already in escrow. You what? Mom's face went pale. Without consulting us? I'm 29 years old. I don't need consultation to invest my own money in my own dream. Kyson finally looked up from his phone. Come on, Saw. Don't be dramatic. Just hear me out about my project. It's guaranteed to fail? I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Like everything else you've tried? The difference is, I've been planning this for years. I've been taking night classes in business management. I've been apprenticing with Bo at his bakery every weekend. I'm not jumping into this blind. You're making a mistake, Dad said, his voice hard. When this fails, I corrected, and if it does, I'll handle it myself, just like I've handled everything else. I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. You know what the funny thing is? I actually thought you'd be proud of me for once, for having the courage to chase my dream instead of just talking about it. Sawyer, Mom started, the bakery opens in 6 weeks. You're all welcome to come. I pulled open the door, but only if you're ready to actually taste what I'm capable of. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood on the porch, letting the cool evening air dry the tears I refused to shed. My phone buzzed. A text from Kiara. How'd it go? I typed back. Exactly as expected. Meet me at Bo's. Her response was immediate. On my way, first round of stress baking is on me. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Maybe it was because I'd finally stood up to them, or maybe it was because, for the first time in my life, I wasn't asking for permission to be myself. Either way, I knew one thing for certain. Sweet Victory Bakery wasn't just going to be a business. It was going to be proof that sometimes the best revenge is served fresh from the oven, with a sprinkle of success on top. 6 weeks flew by in a blur of flour, sugar, and sleepless nights. Opening day at Sweet Victory Bakery arrived with the smell of fresh croissants and nervous energy. These display cases are spotless, Bridget said, adjusting a tray of raspberry Danish. I've cleaned them 3 times already. Make it 4, I replied, rearranging macarons for the 10th time. Everything has to be perfect. Tira burst through the back door, holding a massive bouquet. First delivery of the day. Card says it's from Bo. I plucked the card from the flowers. To the newest baker on the block. Show them what you're made of. That man's a saint. The bell above the door chimed, and my heart stopped. But it wasn't my family, just our first customer. Then another, and another. By noon, the display cases were half empty, and Bridget was starting a 3rd batch of chocolate croissants. The lunch rush brought in curious office workers, and word of mouth did the rest. Your sourdough is incredible, an elderly woman told me, clutching her paper bag. I haven't tasted bread like this since I left Europe. I was boxing up her order when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Kyson's big announcement tonight. Family dinner at 7. Don't be late. Everything okay? Kiara asked, noticing my expression. Family dinner tonight. Kyson's announcing his new venture. On your opening day? That's not a coincidence. Of course it's not. I handed the box to the customer. But I'm going anyway. They need to see I can do both. Run this place and still show up for family. The rest of the afternoon passed in a whirlwind of customers and compliments. At 6:30, I changed out of my flour-dusted clothes and headed to my parents' house, bringing a box of our best-selling items. I walked in to find Kyson holding court in the living room, laptop open on the coffee table. Perfect timing, sis. He waved me over. I'm just showing Mom and Dad the projection slides. How was your bakery's first day? Mom asked, but her eyes never left Kyson's screen. It was... Look at these numbers, Kyson interrupted, pointing at his laptop. We're talking serious ROI within the first quarter. I just need some seed money to get it off the ground. Dad nodded approvingly. How much are we talking? 200,000, but it's practically guaranteed. 200,000? I nearly dropped the pastry box. That's more than double what I invested in my entire bakery. This is different, Dad said dismissively. This is a tech startup. The potential return is exponential. I set the box on the coffee table. I brought some samples from today. We sold out of almost everything, but I saved these for you. Mom glanced at the box. That's nice, dear. Kyson, tell us more about the user interface. I watched as they fawned over Kyson's PowerPoint presentation, complete with buzzwords and pie charts that made no sense. The pastries sat untouched. We've already committed to backing him, Dad announced proudly. Your mother and I are liquidating some investments. Your what? I stood up so fast my head spun. After all his failed ventures? Failed? Kyson scoffed. They were learning experiences. This time it's different. I've got investors lined up. Then why do you need Mom and Dad's money? Because they believe in me. He slammed his laptop shut. Unlike some people. I believe in reality, I shot back. And the reality is, I just opened a successful business with less than half of what you're asking for. A cute little bakery isn't exactly disrupting the tech industry, he sneered. No, it's just feeding actual people and turning an actual profit on day one. Mom stood between us. That's enough. Sawyer, if you can't be supportive... Supportive? I laughed. Like you were this morning when you couldn't even show up to my opening? The room fell silent. I picked up the untouched pastry box. You know what? Keep the money in the family. But when this falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me. It won't fall apart, Dad insisted. Your brother has a real vision this time. So do I said quietly. But you'd have to actually visit my bakery to see it. I walked out again, but this time I wasn't sad. I was angry and determined. My phone buzzed. Bridget sending me tomorrow's pre-orders. We were already booked solid for custom cakes through the next month. I typed back, get ready for an early morning. We're going to show this town what a cute little bakery can do. Let Kyson have his parents' money and approval. I had something better, a real business, built with my own hands, that was already proving them all wrong. 3 months after opening day, I was elbow deep in cookie dough when Bridget rushed into the kitchen, eyes wide. Your parents are here, she whispered. They're standing in the middle of the morning rush, looking confused. I wiped my hands on my apron. Of course they show up during our busiest time. The line stretched out the door, our new normal since the local paper had featured us last week. Mom and Dad stood awkwardly near the register, taking in the exposed brick walls and the constant stream of customers clutching coffee cups and pastry bags. Welcome to Sweet Victory, I said, stepping behind the counter. First time here? Mom's eyes darted around the packed cafe. We were in the neighborhood. The neighborhood you haven't visited in 3 months? I started boxing up a selection of our best sellers. Try the lavender honey scones. They're why we had the TV crew here yesterday. TV crew? Dad's head snapped up. Local morning show. They're doing a segment on successful new businesses. I handed them the box. On the house. Before they could respond, Kira called from the register. Sawyer, the wedding consultation is here. Wedding consultation? Mom echoed. We're doing 3 wedding cakes this weekend. I gestured to the portfolio on the counter. We're booked solid through summer now. Excuse me, I have customers waiting. I spent the next hour walking a bride through cake designs while watching my parents from the corner of my eye. They sat at a corner table, picking at their pastries and watching the constant flow of customers. Is that really your parents? The bride asked, following my gaze. My mom says she has to make reservations just to get your weekend brunch pastry boxes now. They must be so proud. I forced a smile. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Just then, Kyson burst through the door, face flushed. He barely acknowledged our parents before making a beeline for me. We need to talk, he hissed, privately. I'm with a client. It's important. I apologized to the bride and followed Kyson to the back office. He closed the door and started pacing. The investors pulled out, he blurted. All of them, the whole thing's falling apart. The guaranteed success? The exponential returns? Don't. He ran his hands through his hair. The development team hit some snags and costs are spiraling. Mom and Dad's investment, it's almost gone. I leaned against my desk, letting that sink in. How much is almost? Like, all of it. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And there might be some other debts? Jesus, Kyson. I pushed away from the desk. How bad? Bad enough that Mom and Dad might lose their... A knock interrupted us. Bridget poked her head in. Sorry, but the health inspector is here for our quarterly check, and the local business association wants to talk about featuring us in their holiday campaign. Be right there. I turned back to Kyson. We'll discuss this later. There might not be a later. The creditors are... Should I tell Mom and Dad about this conversation? His face paled. No, they don't know how bad it is yet. I was hoping maybe you could... Could what? Bail you out? With my cute little bakery money? Sawyer, please, I'm desperate here. I opened the door. So was I every time I needed support. Funny how things turn out, isn't it? Back in the main room, Mom and Dad were still at their table, watching me with new eyes as I guided the health inspector through our spotless kitchen. They saw the respect in his nods, heard the pride in my staff's voices as they explained our procedures. Perfect score again, the inspector announced, signing off on his forms. Keep up the excellent work. Mom stood up as I passed their table. Sawyer, we had no idea. No, you didn't. I straightened a display of fresh croissants. Because you never bothered to look. Your brother, Dad started, will probably be asking for your help again soon. I met their eyes. Maybe this time think carefully about where you invest your trust. They left shortly after, taking their half-eaten pastries with them. Through the window, I watched them talk intensely in the parking lot, probably about Kyson's latest disaster. Ciara appeared at my shoulder. You okay? Better than okay. I picked up a piping bag. We've got orders to fill, a business to run, and success to bake. And Kyson's problems? I started piping delicate roses onto a celebration cake. Let's just say karma comes in all flavors. Some are just sweeter than others. The afternoon sun streamed through our windows, catching on the gold lettering that spelled out Sweet Victory Bakery. Outside, another line was forming for our afternoon tea service. Inside, I was finally serving up the one thing my family had never given me, respect, and it tasted better than any revenge I could have planned. The family ambush came on a Tuesday afternoon, right as I was finishing a batch of macarons. Mom, Dad, and Kyson filed into my office like a funeral procession, with Kyson looking particularly grave. "We need to talk," Dad said, closing the door. "I'm busy." I kept piping. "We have a corporate event tomorrow." "Please," Mom's voice cracked. "This is important." I set down the piping bag. "More important than my last 3 dinner invitations that you all skipped?" "This is serious." Kyson stepped forward. "The creditors are threatening legal action. They're talking about putting liens on Mom and Dad's house. And this is my problem because you're the only one who can help." Kyson exploded. "Your bakery's doing great. Everyone knows it. The local papers, the TV spots. So now my cute little bakery matters?" I crossed my arms. "Now that you need something?" Dad cleared his throat. "We were wrong, okay? We should have supported you from the start." "Should have?" I laughed. "You actively tried to stop me. You wanted me to give my money to him." I pointed at Kyson for what turned out to be another failure. "I know I messed up," Kyson said quietly, "but Mom and Dad shouldn't lose their house because of me. They shouldn't have invested money they couldn't afford to lose." "Sawyer," Mom stepped closer, tears in her eyes, "we're not just asking for money. We're asking for your help, your business expertise. You've proven you know what you're doing." "Now I have expertise. 3 months ago I was playing Betty Crocker." A knock interrupted us. Bridget opened the door. "Sorry, but the magazine photographer is here for the Top 30 Under 30 shoot. Tell them I'll be right there." "Top 30 Under 30? Dad's eyebrows shot up. "Regional Business Magazine." I straightened my apron. "Turns out selling cupcakes can be pretty prestigious when you do it right." Kyson slumped against the wall. "So you won't help?" I studied my brother, really looked at him for the first time in months. His designer clothes were wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. He looked beaten. "I didn't say that." Hope flickered across his face. "Really? I'll think about it. But if, and that's a big if, I help, it'll be on my terms." "Anything," Mom said quickly. "Whatever you want." "I want a family meeting. Tomorrow night, here at the bakery, after closing." I picked up my piping bag again. "I'll lay out my conditions then." "Conditions?" Dad frowned. "Did you think I'd just write a check and forget how you've treated me for years?" I started piping again. "This isn't charity, it's business." "But," Kyson started. "Tomorrow at 8. I cut him off. "Don't be late, and come hungry. I'm testing new recipes for the fall menu." They filed out, shoulders slumped but with a hint of hope. Through my office window, I watched them cross the parking lot, huddled together like survivors of a storm. Ciara slipped in as they left. "That looked intense." "They want my help with Kyson's mess." "And you're considering it?" She raised an eyebrow. "After everything?" "I'm considering making them earn it." I finished the last macaron. "Remember that contract template your lawyer sister sent over? The partnership agreement? That's the one. Can you get me a copy? I need to make some modifications." Ciara's eyes widened. "You're not seriously thinking of making Kyson a partner?" "No." I smiled. "I'm thinking of making him learn what real business looks like, from the ground up." "You're going to make him work here?" "If he wants my help, he's going to learn every aspect of running a successful business, starting with morning prep at 4 a.m. Bridget popped her head in. "The photographer's waiting." "Coming?" I stood up, brushing flour from my apron. "Oh, and Bridget, clear the schedule for tomorrow night. We're hosting a very special family dinner." "Should I make your famous revenge cake?" She grinned. "No." I straightened my shoulders. "Make the humble pie, extra humble." As I walked to meet the photographer, I caught my reflection in the bakery window. I saw someone I barely recognized, not the shadow of my younger brother, but a successful business owner about to teach her family a lesson in respect. Tomorrow night, I'd serve up a slice of reality with a side of consequences, and this time, they'd have no choice but to take a bite. At exactly 8 o'clock, my family sat around one of our rustic wooden tables, staring at the spread before them. I'd laid out a feast, everything that had made Sweet Victory famous in just 3 months. Before we discuss terms, I said, sliding into my seat, let's talk numbers. How bad is it really, Kyson? He pulled out a crumpled stack of papers. 243,000. That's more than Mom and Dad invested, I noted. There were additional loans. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Personal guarantees. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Personal guarantees. You said the investment was secured. Can we focus on solutions? Mom pleaded, reaching for a cheese Danish with trembling fingers. That's why we're here. I pulled out 3 manila envelopes. My terms. Kyson grabbed for an envelope, but I held them back. First, eat. Everything on this table represents what actual success looks like. I want you to taste what you've been dismissing. They ate in silence. I watched their faces as they tried each item. The sourdough that took me 6 months to perfect, the croissants that required 3 days of preparation, the signature cake that had won us our first wedding contract. This is, Dad swallowed hard. This is incredible, Sawyer. I know. I slid the envelopes across the table. Now, let's talk about how we fix your mess. They opened the envelopes. Mom gasped. Kyson's face went pale. You want me to work here? He sputtered. As a trainee? 6 months, minimum wage, starting with morning prep at 4 a.m. I tapped the contract. You'll learn every aspect of running a real business. No shortcuts, no excuses. But my tech career is over, I finished, at least until you pay back every penny you owe. And us? Dad asked, reviewing his paper. You'll both take small business management classes at the community college, the same ones I took while working full-time, and you'll spend 1 shift per week here, seeing what your daughter built while you weren't looking. These terms are ridiculous, Kyson protested. More ridiculous than losing your parents' house? I leaned forward. More ridiculous than watching them liquidate their retirement to fund your fantasy? Mom wiped her eyes. We'll do it. Margaret, Dad started. No, Henry, look around. She gestured at the bakery. Our daughter built this while we were too busy enabling Kyson's failures. We owe her this much. There's more, I said, pulling out another document. Once the debt is paid and if, big if, Kyson completes his training successfully, I'll consider taking him on as a junior partner in a new venture. Kyson's head snapped up. New venture? I'm planning to expand, a second location, maybe a wholesale operation, but only with someone who understands real business, not get-rich-quick schemes. And the money? Dad asked quietly. How much can you? I'll cover the debts. I slid over a cashier's check, but only after all 3 of you sign these contracts. Break them, and I'll demand immediate repayment. Kyson stared at the contract, then at the bustling bakery around us. You really start at 4 a.m.? Sharp. Bridget will train you. She's strict, by the way, doesn't tolerate excuses. And the business classes? Mom asked. Tuesday and Thursday evenings. I've already enrolled you both. Bo, my mentor, teaches some of them. They sat in silence, reading through the terms. Finally, Dad reached for a pen. You're either brilliant or cruel, he said, signing his name. I learned from the best. I watched as Mom and Kyson signed too. Welcome to the real world of business, family. Hope you like the taste of humble pie. When do we start? Kyson asked, already looking uncomfortable. You? Tomorrow morning. Don't be late. Bridget hates that. I gathered the signed contracts. Mom, Dad, your first class is next week. I expect full attendance and completed homework. As they prepared to leave, Mom paused. We really are proud of you, Sawyer. We should have said it sooner. Actions speak louder than words, I replied. Show me with your commitment to these terms. After they left, Kira emerged from the kitchen. Think they'll actually follow through? They better. I looked at the signed contracts. Because this is their last chance to prove they see me as more than just Kyson's big sister. And if they fail, I smiled, sliding the contracts into my safe. Then they'll learn what I already know. Success tastes sweetest when you earn it yourself. Through the window, I watched them drive away, their faces still processing the evening's events. Tomorrow would be Kyson's first 4 a.m. wake-up call and my parents' first step toward understanding what their daughter had achieved. Let the lessons begin. 2 weeks into our new arrangement, I arrived at 3:45 a.m. to find Kyson already waiting outside. Dark circles under his eyes, but on time for once. Bridget's been making me come 15 minutes early, he mumbled, suppressing a yawn. Says if I'm not early, I'm late. Smart woman. I unlocked the door. Ready to learn laminated dough today? I still have burns from yesterday's lesson. Those aren't burns, I laughed. They're badges of honor. Wait until you start working with caramel. Inside, Bridget was already setting up the prep stations. She'd taken to training Kyson with a drill sergeant's precision, and surprisingly, he hadn't quit yet. Your brother's getting better, she whispered as Kyson tied on his apron. He only ruined one batch of brioche yesterday. The morning proceeded smoothly until Bo walked in through the back door, carrying a stack of folders. Quarterly supplier reviews, he announced, then stopped short at the sight of Kyson covered in flour. Well, look who finally joined the real world. You know each other? I asked. Oh, we go way back. Bo set down the folders. Your brother here tried to get me to invest in 3 different schemes. What was the last one? The social media thing for pets? Kyson's face reddened. It was a revolutionary platform. It was a mess, Bo cut in. Just like the dating app and the subscription box service. I tried to warn your parents, but they wouldn't listen. I froze in the middle of scoring croissants. You warned them? Multiple times. Bo crossed his arms. Showed them the market research, the flawed business plans, everything. They said I just didn't understand modern business. The scoring knife clattered onto the counter. They knew? They knew his businesses were doomed? They chose to believe what they wanted to believe. Bo shrugged. Just like they chose not to see what was right in front of them with you. Kyson stared at the floor, hands covered in dough. I didn't know you tried to warn them. Of course you didn't. Bo picked up a rolling pin. You were too busy chasing unicorns to see the real opportunities around you. Like this place. He gestured at the bakery. Your sister built this while you were playing entrepreneur. The morning rush prep continued in tense silence. At 6, Mom arrived for her weekly shift, looking more comfortable in her bakery apron than I'd expected. The regulars are starting to know my name, she said proudly, then noticed the atmosphere. What's wrong? Ask Bo, I said quietly. About all those warnings he gave you about Kyson's ventures. Mom's smile faded. Sawyer, we can explain. Can you? I checked the proofing drawer. Can you explain why you ignored professional advice about Kyson, but couldn't even show up to my opening day? We thought, she trailed off. You thought he needed you more, Bo finished. But he needed you to say no, and Sawyer needed you to say yes. The first customers would arrive soon. I turned to Kyson, who hadn't moved from his workstation. Start the coffee prep, I ordered. Mom, get the display cases ready. We'll discuss this later. But as the morning progressed, watching them work, really work, for the first time in their lives, something shifted. Kyson's hands were steady as he worked the espresso machine. Mom's voice was confident as she explained our pastry selection to customers. During the mid-morning lull, Bo pulled me aside. "They're learning," he said. "Sometimes the hardest lessons come from watching someone else succeed." "I'm not sure I can forgive them," I admitted, "for knowing the truth and still choosing his failures over my success." "Maybe that's not the point." Bo nodded toward Kyson, who was carefully crafting his first latte art. "Maybe the point is making sure they never make the same mistake again." The morning rush picked up again, and I watched my family move through the choreography of the bakery. They were different people than they'd been 2 weeks ago, humbler, harder working, finally understanding what it meant to build something real. My phone buzzed. Dad sending his completed homework from his business class, asking for feedback. Another text followed. "Your professor said my analysis of Sweet Victory's business model was spot on. I'm starting to understand what you built here." I typed back, "Understanding is just the beginning. Wait until you see what's next." Because that's the thing about real success. It's not about revenge or proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right over and over until even the doubters have to believe. And watching my family finally learn that lesson, that was sweeter than any revenge I could have planned. 1 month later, I called an emergency family meeting. The bakery was closed, but the lights blazed as I spread documents across our largest table. "Is everything okay?" Mom asked, sliding into her seat. "You sounded serious on the phone." "Just wait." I checked my watch. "Kyson should be here any—" The door chimed. Kyson rushed in, still in his flour-dusted uniform from the morning shift. "Sorry I'm late. The wholesale orders took longer than expected." "Sit down," I said, pushing a folder toward each of them. "We need to talk about what Bo told me." Dad's face fell. "Sawyer, we can explain." "No." I held up my hand. "I've been doing some digging, going through old records, talking to Bo, checking with the business registry." I pulled out a stack of papers. "You didn't just ignore his warnings. You mortgaged the house 3 times to fund Kyson's ventures." Mom started crying. You thought he'd succeed eventually," I finished, while actively sabotaging his chances by never making him face consequences. "That's not fair," Dad protested. "No?" I spread out more documents. "What about the time you pulled money from my college fund for his first startup? Or when you convinced Aunt Linda to invest her savings in his dating app?" Kyson's head snapped up. "You used Sawyer's college fund?" "We paid it back," Dad mumbled. "With what?" I demanded. "The money you should have been saving for retirement? The equity from your house? The loans you're still paying off?" The silence was deafening. Outside, the street was dark and empty, but inside, years of secrets were finally coming to light. "I had no idea," Kyson whispered, "about any of this." "Because they protected you from reality." I turned to our parents, and in doing so, they hurt everyone, including you. Mom wiped her eyes. "We just wanted to help." I laughed bitterly. "Look where that got us. A mountain of debt, a house in jeopardy, and a son who never learned to stand on his own feet. Until now," Kyson said quietly. He pulled out his own papers, daily sales reports from his shifts, customer feedback, even a rough business plan. "I've been learning, Sawyer, really learning. These past weeks have shown me what I was doing wrong all along." "Show them," I nodded toward our parents. Kyson spread out his work. "Every failed venture, I was chasing shortcuts, but here?" He gestured around the bakery. "Everything takes time, preparation, attention to detail. You can't rush perfection." Dad picked up one of Kyson's reports. "You did all this analysis yourself?" "Bridget's been teaching me." Did you know our morning prep schedule is synchronized to maximize oven efficiency? Or that each recipe is tested 30 times before it goes on the menu? That's what real business looks like, I said, not PowerPoint presentations and empty promises. We were wrong, Mom admitted, about everything. The way we treated you, the way we enabled Kyson. The question is, I leaned forward, what are you going to do about it? Dad straightened in his chair. We'll sell the house, pay off the debts ourselves. No. I pulled out one final document. You're going to let me help, the right way this time. What do you mean? Sweet Victory is expanding. We're opening a second location. I slid the paper across the table. If you all agree to continue your training, to work as hard as you have been, I'll handle the debts. But this time, we do it as a real family business. You'd trust us? Kyson asked. After everything? I trust the people you're becoming, I corrected. The ones who show up at 4 a.m., who do the hard work, who finally understand what it means to build something real. Mom reached for the document with trembling hands. We don't deserve this chance. No, you don't. But that's what family does. Gives chances to those who earn them. And you're finally earning it. Kyson stood up suddenly, walking to the window. The Sweet Victory sign cast a warm glow on his face. I want to run the new location, he said. Not as the boss, as a student. Learning from the ground up, doing it right this time. That's the first smart business decision you've ever made, I smiled. We spent the next hour going over plans, real plans, built on hard work and honest numbers. As my family signed the new agreements, I saw something I'd never seen before. Respect in their eyes, not just for my success, but for the path that led here. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in proving people wrong, but in helping them become right. The morning of the second location's opening, I stood in the new kitchen, watching Kyson teach our parents the proper way to laminate croissant dough. No, Mom, you need to fold it exactly 3 times, he demonstrated. Remember what Bridget taught us. Precision matters. Like this, Mom's hands were steady as she created perfect layers. Exactly. He beamed. Now you're getting it. Dad checked the proofing drawer temperatures, making notes in the logbook he'd designed himself. His business classes had awakened a passion for systems optimization that none of us had expected. The delivery truck's here, Tiara called from the back door. First wholesale order for the new location. I've got it, Kyson said, wiping his hands. That's my department now. I watched him confidently direct the delivery, checking every item against his meticulous spreadsheet. No shortcuts, no grandiose promises, just honest, careful work. Remember when he couldn't even work the register? Bridget appeared beside me, grinning. Now look at him. Look at all of them, I said. The new location gleamed, ready for its first customers. But more impressive than the shiny equipment and fresh paint was the transformation of my family. Bo walked in through the front door, carrying his signature opening day flowers. Place looks perfect. You ready for the ribbon cutting? Almost. I turned to my family. First, I need to show you something. I led them to the front of the store, where a large frame hung covered by a cloth. With a deep breath, I pulled the fabric away. There, beautifully displayed, was the original Sweet Victory business plan I'd presented at that fateful family dinner. The one they'd dismissed. Beside it hung the newspaper articles, awards, and photos documenting our success. And below them all, a new sign. Sweet Victory South, managed by Kyson Grant. Sawyer! Kyson's voice cracked. You've earned this, I said. All of you have. Mom touched the frame gently. I wish we could go back and do it differently. We can't, I replied, but we can do better going forward. The mayor arrived for the ribbon cutting, along with local press and a crowd of eager customers. As cameras flashed, I handed the scissors to Kyson. This is your moment, I said. You built this location from the ground up, the right way this time. He shook his head. We built it together. He offered me the other handle of the scissors. Family business, remember? As we cut the ribbon together, I saw tears in Dad's eyes. Not the disappointed ones I'd grown used to, but proud ones, finally seeing both his children succeeding on their own terms. The morning rush was intense, but my family moved like a well-oiled machine. Kyson expedited orders with calm efficiency. Mom charmed customers with genuine warmth. Dad's organizational systems kept everything running smoothly. During a brief lull, Bo pulled me aside. You know, revenge would have been easier than redemption. Easier, maybe. I watched Kyson patiently training a new employee, but not sweeter. The day flew by in a blur of customers and congratulations. As we closed up, my family gathered around a table, sharing leftover pastries and stories from the day. Remember my first morning shift? Kyson laughed. I nearly set the kitchen on fire. Remember our first business class presentation? Dad added. We were so nervous. Remember when we thought a bakery was just selling cupcakes? Mom smiled at me. We were wrong about so many things. But you learned, I said. That's what matters. Kyson raised his coffee cup. To sweet victory, both locations. To family, Dad added, and second chances. To doing things the right way, Mom chimed in. I looked around at my family, really looked at them. The arrogance was gone from Kyson's eyes, replaced by earned confidence. The dismissiveness had vanished from my parents' faces, transformed into genuine respect. To all of it, I said, raising my cup. The failures that taught us, the success we built, and the family we became. Through the windows, both sweet victory signs glowed in the evening darkness, beacons of what we'd built together. Not just successful businesses, but a stronger family, forged in the heat of early morning ovens and tempered by hard-earned wisdom. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in proving your worth to others, but in helping them discover their own. And as I watched my family close up their new bakery, their real achievement, I knew we'd all finally learned that lesson. The revenge I'd planned had turned into redemption, and that was the sweetest success of all.
The call from Alan came exactly 3 months after Grandma Evelyn's funeral. I was knee-deep in quarterly reports at my desk when my phone buzzed, displaying his name like an omen. My name is Presley, and until 6 months ago, I was nothing more than a shadow of myself, the dutiful wife of Damon Duncan, living in his world by his rules. Now, at 38, I'm finally becoming the woman I was meant to be. Presley, we need to talk. Alan's voice carried an urgency I hadn't heard since my divorce proceedings. It's about Evelyn's will. I straightened in my chair, ignoring the stack of reports demanding my attention. I thought everything was settled weeks ago. There's been a development? Can you come by the office today? The fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright, too harsh. Alan, you're scaring me. What's going on? It's better discussed in person. How's 4 o'clock? After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the darkened computer screen. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same person who'd signed divorce papers a year ago. My hair was shorter now, professional. My eyes harder, more determined. Damon had always insisted I keep my hair long, one of his many attempts to mold me into his perfect wife. Earth to Presley, Michaela's voice cut through my thoughts as she leaned against my office doorframe. You look like you've seen a ghost. Just got a weird call from Alan about Grandma's will. She crossed her arms, frowning. The lawyer Alan? I thought that was all wrapped up? So did I. I grabbed my purse, needing to move, to do something. Want to grab coffee? At our usual spot across from the office, Michaela stirred her latte while I recounted the call. You don't think Damon's trying something, do you? The question made my stomach clench. He can't. The divorce settlement was clear. Honey, when has that ever stopped him? She had a point. During our marriage, Damon had expertly manipulated every situation to his advantage. Even now, months after signing the papers, I sometimes caught myself second-guessing my decisions. His voice in my head telling me I wasn't capable, wasn't smart enough. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Sadie, my sister. "Have you heard from Alan?" she asked without preamble. "Just got off the phone with him. You too?" "Yeah, something's up, Prez. I don't like it." I checked my watch. Still 2 hours until the meeting. "Meet me at his office?" Already on my way. Michaela squeezed my hand. "Want me to come with?" "No, but thanks. I need to handle this." The words came out stronger than I felt. "Look at you, all grown up and facing your demons," she smiled. "Remember when you couldn't even order coffee without checking with Damon first?" I winced at the memory. God, I was pathetic. "No, you were controlled. There's a difference." The walk to Alan's office gave me time to think. Grandma Evelyn had left me her estate, the house, the investments, everything. She'd always seen through Damon's facade, warning me years before I'd finally seen the truth myself. "A woman's worth isn't measured by her husband's approval," she'd told me once, her wise eyes seeing right through my carefully constructed happiness. Alan's secretary ushered me into his office immediately. Sadie was already there, pacing by the window. "Thanks for coming so quickly," Alan said, gesturing to the chairs. "We have a situation." "Just tell us," Sadie demanded, still standing. Alan pulled out a thick folder. "I received a letter this morning from Regina Mitchell's lawyer." My blood ran cold. Regina, Damon's new wife, the woman he'd left me for. What could she possibly want? I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Half of Evelyn's estate." Alan's voice was grim. "She's claiming Damon has rights to it through your marriage." Sadie cursed. "That's ridiculous. They're divorced." "It gets worse," Alan continued. "They're threatening to contest the will if we don't settle." I sat very still, remembering Grandma Evelyn's last words to me. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people think they're winning. "What aren't you telling us, Alan?" I asked quietly. He smiled for the first time since we'd arrived. "Your grandmother was a brilliant woman, Presley. She anticipated something like this might happen." He pulled out another document, this one sealed. "She left specific instructions not to open this unless someone contested the will." My hands shook as I took the envelope. "What's in it?" "I don't know," Alan admitted. "But knowing Evelyn, I'd say Damon and his new wife are in for quite a surprise." The doorbell rang at exactly 9 a.m. the next morning. I was already dressed for work, sipping coffee and reviewing the contents of Grandma Evelyn's sealed envelope when Regina's perfectly manicured finger pressed the button again. And again. "Coming," I called, tucking the documents into my briefcase. Regina stood on my porch like she owned it, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Presley, darling, it's been too long." "Has it?" I stepped aside, letting her enter. "I think the last time was at your wedding to my ex-husband." She laughed, the sound brittle. "Water under the bridge, surely. We're practically family." "What do you want, Regina?" She settled onto my couch without waiting for an invitation. Direct. I like that. "Well, let's be equally direct. Damon and I want to discuss Evelyn's estate." "There's nothing to discuss." I remained standing, watching her examine her nails. "Oh, but there is." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through what looked like legal documents. "You see, Damon was married to you when Evelyn made her will. That creates certain entitlements." I fought to keep my voice steady. "Does it? And what does your lawyer say about that?" Her head snapped up, surprise flickering across her face. "How did you know about the lawyer?" Alan called me yesterday. "He's very thorough." Regina's composure slipped for just a moment. "Then you know we have a case." "Do you?" I walked to my kitchen, pouring another cup of coffee. "Would you like some?" "No, thank you." She stood, following me. "Presley, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Damon's willing to settle for half." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Willing to settle? That's generous of him. He has rights. He has nothing." I set my cup down harder than intended. And you know what's interesting? He sent you to do his dirty work. Still can't face me himself? Regina's perfectly painted lips tightened. Damon thought I could handle this more diplomatically. Diplomatically? I laughed. Is that what this is? My phone buzzed, a text from Sadie. On my way. Don't let her leave. Look, Regina's voice softened, almost sympathetic. I know you're still hurt about everything. Stop! I held up my hand. Let me be very clear. I'm not hurt. I'm not bitter. I'm not even angry anymore. What I am is done with Damon's games. The doorbell rang again. Regina jumped. Sadie burst in before I could answer, Alan right behind her. Sorry we're late. Traffic was horrible. My sister's voice was deliberately cheerful. Oh, Regina, what a surprise. Regina's eyes darted between them. I should go. Actually, Alan stepped forward, I think you should stay. We have some documents to discuss. I don't have to talk to you. Regina grabbed her purse. My lawyer. Your lawyer, Alan interrupted, should have done better research. Evelyn made changes to her will 3 months before she died, after Presley's divorce was finalized. I watched the color drain from Regina's face. That's impossible. We checked. The public records? Sadie smiled. Grandma was smarter than that. Alan pulled out a document. This is the actual will, filed privately. And this, he produced another paper, is a detailed account of every attempt Damon made to access Evelyn's finances while married to Presley. Regina's hands shook as she took the papers. I don't understand. It's simple, I said. Grandma knew Damon would try something like this. She kept records. Every time he asked about her investments, every time he suggested Presley help manage her accounts, every time he tried to convince her to add his name to her properties. That's not... Regina swallowed hard. Damon wouldn't... He would, and he did. Sadie's voice was steel. And now he's using you to try again. Regina sank into a chair, papers crumpling in her grip. He said it was a sure thing, that she'd cave rather than fight. He was wrong. I took the documents gently from her hands. And, Regina, you might want to check your joint accounts. Damon has a habit of making investments disappear when things don't go his way. Her head snapped up, real fear in her eyes now. She grabbed her phone, fingers flying over the screen. Oh, God, she whispered. The savings, they're gone. Let me guess, Sadie said. He moved them yesterday right after you agreed to come here? Regina stood abruptly, mascara smearing as she wiped her eyes. I have to go. Regina, I called as she reached the door, there's one more thing you should know. She turned, looking suddenly much younger and more vulnerable. Grandma's will has a clause. If anyone contests it, everything goes to charity. Everything. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. Well, Sadie grinned, that was fun. But I was already pulling out my phone, Regina's devastated expression haunting me. Alan, we need to make some calls. She's about to find out exactly what kind of man she married. The memory hit me as I was making dinner that night. Damon, standing in our old kitchen, his voice dripping with condescension as he explained why I shouldn't take that promotion. Honey, you're just not ready for that kind of responsibility, he'd said, stirring his coffee. Besides, what would you do with all that extra money? I take care of everything we need. The sound of something shattering snapped me back to the present. I'd gripped the wine glass too hard, sending shards across my kitchen floor. Damn it, I muttered, reaching for the broom. My phone rang, Regina's number flashing on the screen. I hesitated before answering. He's gone. Her voice was barely a whisper. He cleared out everything, even my personal account. I sat down heavily. How much? 300,000. She choked back a sob. My entire inheritance from my father. Regina, don't. Please don't say you warned me. There was rustling in the background. I thought I was different, special, not like me? Yes. The word came out broken. He said you were clingy, controlling, that you held him back. I couldn't help but laugh. Let me guess. He said I was jealous of his success, that I couldn't handle his ambition? How did you... Because that's his script, Regina. He used the same lines on me about his first wife. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke again. There was no first wife, was there? No. Just like there was no Harvard MBA, no family money, no tech startup that failed because of betrayal by his partners. Oh, God. Her breathing became erratic. I'm going to be sick. Regina, listen to me. Call your bank right now. Report the transfers as fraudulent. Then call the police. I'll have Alan contact you in the morning. Why are you helping me? I thought about Grandma Evelyn, about her strength and wisdom. Because 5 years ago, I was you. After hanging up, I called Sadie. You're not going to believe this, she answered. Damon just tried to buy a ticket to Belize. How do you know that? Remember Tommy from high school? He works for the airline now. Called me as soon as he saw the name. I grabbed my keys. Where is he? Airport. Flight leaves in 2 hours. Call Alan. Tell him to meet me there. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the airport parking lot. Sadie was already waiting with Alan and 2 police officers. Ms. Ray? One officer stepped forward. We understand you have information about Mr. Duncan. Alan handed them a file. Multiple counts of fraud, theft, and financial exploitation. We've been building this case for months. Since Grandma died, I added, she kept everything. Every document, every email, every transfer he tried to hide. This is impressive, the second officer said, flipping through the pages. But why didn't you come forward sooner? Because we needed him to do it again, Alan explained. To establish a pattern. Show it wasn't just one isolated incident. My phone buzzed with a text from Regina. Bank froze the accounts. They're investigating the transfers. And there it is, I showed them the message. His latest victim just filed a complaint. The officers exchanged looks. We'll need statements from both of you. Already prepared, Alan produced more documents, along with testimony from his previous business partners. A voice came over the airport speakers announcing final boarding for the flight to Belize. Through the terminal windows, I saw him, Damon, striding toward the security checkpoint, still wearing the same confident smile that had once made me believe every lie. That's him. I nodded to the officers. They moved quickly, professionally. I watched as they intercepted him, as the smile faltered and died. He looked around wildly, finally spotting me standing with Sadie and Alan. You? He mouthed, face contorting with rage. I thought of all the times he'd made me doubt myself, all the dreams I'd abandoned because he said I wasn't good enough, all the years I'd spent believing I was the problem. Karma's a bitch, Sadie muttered beside me. But watching the handcuffs click around his wrists, I felt no satisfaction, only relief, and something else, something that felt surprisingly like pity. My phone buzzed again. Regina. Thank you. I'm ready to tell the police everything. You know, Sadie said as we watched them lead Damon away, Grandma would be proud. Of what? Sending my ex-husband to jail? She squeezed my hand. Of you finally standing up for yourself and for others. I thought about Regina, about all the other women Damon might have targeted if we hadn't stopped him. Come on, I said. We have work to do. You need to see this. Sadie dropped a stack of papers on my kitchen table the next morning. The police found it in Damon's apartment. I pushed aside my coffee, pulling the documents closer. Lists of women's names, dates, dollar amounts. My stomach turned as I realized what I was looking at. How many? I asked. 12, that we can confirm. All wealthy widows or divorcees. Sadie sat down heavily. He had their whole lives mapped out. When they inherited, where they banked, their vulnerabilities. Like Regina's father's death. Exactly. She tapped one of the pages. Look at the dates. He started planning Regina while you were still married. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Regina stood on my porch, looking nothing like the polished woman who'd arrived 2 days ago. Her eyes were red, her designer outfit replaced with jeans and a sweater. I brought bagels, she said quietly. And files, lots of files. We spread everything across my dining room table. Bank statements, emails, photos. Regina's hands shook as she pointed to specific transactions. He always had an explanation, she said. Every missing dollar, every strange transfer. He made it sound so reasonable. That's what he does, I replied, remembering my own experiences. He twists things until you doubt your own judgment. Like this. Regina pulled out an email. He convinced me to invest in a startup. Said it was a sure thing, but we had to move fast. No time for my lawyer to review it. Sadie snorted. Let me guess. The company doesn't exist? Oh, it exists. Regina's laugh was bitter. It's a shell corporation. He owns it. My phone buzzed. Alan calling. I put him on speaker. The DA wants to meet, he said without preamble. They're building a RICO case. This goes beyond just fraud. What do you mean? I asked. Your grandmother's records were the key. They show a pattern going back 15 years. Multiple states, multiple victims. It's organized crime. Regina's face went pale. Organized? You mean he's not alone? We found evidence of at least 3 accomplices. People who helped him identify targets, set up fake companies, move money offshore. I thought about Grandma Evelyn, how she'd spent her last years quietly gathering evidence. She knew, I whispered. That's why she left everything in trust, why she made it impossible for him to access. Smart woman, your grandmother, Alan said. She protected not just you, but others too. After the call ended, Regina stared at the papers scattered across the table. I feel so stupid. Don't, I touched her arm. He's a professional con man. This is what he does. Did he ever... She hesitated. Did he hit you? No. His violence was all emotional. Mind games, gaslighting, constant criticism. He told me I was crazy, Regina's voice cracked. When I questioned the transfers, said I was being paranoid, that I needed help. Sadie's phone chimed with a news alert. She held it up, showing us the headline, Prominent Businessman Arrested in Multi-State Fraud Scheme. It's really over, Regina breathed. Not quite. I pulled out Grandma's original envelope, the one Alan had given me. There's something else you should see. Inside was a letter, written in Grandma's familiar handwriting. My dearest Presley, if you're reading this, it means someone, probably Damon, has tried to claim what isn't theirs. I'm leaving you not just my estate, but my purpose. The trust I've established isn't just for you. It's for all his victims, past and future. Use it to help them rebuild. Use it to stop him. All my love, Grandma Evelyn. Regina wiped her eyes. She set up a fund for his victims? Yes. I showed her the trust documents, legal aid, financial counseling, whatever they need to recover. Your grandmother? Regina shook her head in amazement. She planned all this? She believed in karma, Sadie said, but she also believed in helping it along. I looked at the women around my table. My sister, who'd never lost faith in me. Regina, finding her strength. And somewhere, watching over us, Grandma Evelyn, who'd turned her pain into purpose. So, I said, gathering the scattered papers, who's ready to help some people rebuild their lives? Regina straightened her shoulders, a hint of her old confidence returning. Where do we start? We start, Sadie grinned, by making some calls. There are 10 other women out there who need to know they're not alone. As we began organizing the files, I felt Grandma's presence strongly. She'd known this day would come, had prepared for it meticulously. Now it was our turn to carry on her work. Hey, Regina caught my arm. Thank you for not saying, I told you so. That's not what this is about, I replied. This is about making things right. The courthouse steps felt steeper than I remembered. 2 weeks had passed since Damon's arrest, and now we were facing the first bail hearing. Regina walked beside me, her head high despite the whispers and stares. Ready? I asked as we reached the top. Before she could answer, a familiar voice cut through the morning air. Well, if it isn't my 2 favorite ex-wives. Damon stood at the entrance, flanked by his lawyer. He'd lost weight in detention, but his smile was the same, predatory, confident. Surprised to see you both here, he continued. Supporting each other? How touching. Regina's hand found mine, squeezing hard. Save it, Damon. We're not here for you. No? He stepped closer. Then why are you here? To watch the show? To feel vindicated? We're here for them. I nodded toward the group of women gathering near the courthouse doors, his other victims, brought together by Grandma's trust. His smile faltered slightly. More bitter ex-girlfriends. Please, no judge will take this seriously. Actually, Alan's voice came from behind us, the judge is very interested in hearing from everyone, especially about the offshore accounts we found yesterday. Damon's lawyer grabbed his arm. Don't say another word. But Damon shrugged him off, his facade cracking. You think you're so clever, don't you, Presley? Playing detective with Mommy's money? Grandmother's, I corrected. And she played detective long before I did. Want to know what else she found? His face darkened. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone, showing him an email. This is from 3 years ago. You discussing your investment strategy with your partners, the ones helping you target wealthy women. That's inadmissible, his lawyer started. In criminal court, maybe, Alan interrupted. But the civil suits these ladies are filing? That's different. Damon's composure finally broke. You vindictive bitch! You really think you can take me down? No, Regina stepped forward. We already have. The courthouse doors opened, and more women emerged, faces I recognized from his files, each carrying documents, each ready to testify. You see, Damon, I said quietly, while you were sitting in jail, we were busy. Every woman you conned, every dollar you stole, every lie you told, it's all coming out. You can't prove anything. We don't have to, Regina's voice was steel. You kept records, detailed ones, and guess what? The FBI is very interested in your little network. His lawyer was practically dragging him away now, but Damon couldn't help himself. I made you both, he shouted. You were nothing before me. No, I called after him. We were everything before you. We just forgot for a while. Inside the courtroom, I watched as woman after woman stood to testify against bail. Each story was different, but the pattern was the same. Trust betrayed, money stolen, lives shattered. Ms. Ray? The judge's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Would you like to make a statement? I stood, feeling the weight of every woman's eyes. Your Honor, I'm not here to talk about what Damon took from me. I'm here to talk about what he tried to take from all of us, our dignity, our self-worth, our trust in ourselves. Damon shifted in his seat as I continued. But he failed. Because what he never understood is that women like us, we don't break, we rebuild, we support each other, and we fight back. The judge nodded thoughtfully. And the trust your grandmother established? Is already helping his victims recover their losses, but more importantly, it's helping them recover themselves. Objection. Damon's lawyer stood. This is irrelevant to the bail hearing. On the contrary, the judge replied, it speaks directly to the defendant's pattern of behavior and the community's response to it. She turned back to me. Continue, Ms. Ray. There's nothing more to say, Your Honor, except that my grandmother saw through him years ago, and she made sure he wouldn't hurt anyone else. Your grandmother sounds like a remarkable woman. I smiled, feeling Grandma Evelyn's presence strongly. She was. And she taught me that true strength isn't in tearing others down. It's in helping them stand up. The judge denied bail, citing flight risk and the extensive evidence of ongoing criminal enterprise. As they led Damon away, he caught my eye one last time. This isn't over, he mouthed. Actually, Regina whispered beside me, it is. Outside, the group of women gathered on the courthouse steps, sharing stories, exchanging numbers, building connections. Look at what you started, Sadie said, joining us. No, I corrected her. Look at what Grandma started. We're just carrying it forward. Regina linked her arm through mine. So, what's next? I watched the sun rise over the courthouse, thinking of all the other Damons out there, all the women who needed help. Now, I said, we get to work. You need to see this, Michaela burst into my office, waving her tablet. Someone leaked Damon's client list. I looked up from the stack of victim statements I'd been reviewing. What? She turned the tablet around, showing me a news article. All his contacts, his targeting strategy, everything. It's gone viral. My phone immediately lit up with calls and messages. Regina's name flashed first. "Have you seen it?" she asked before I could speak. "Just now. Any idea who leaked it?" "Not yet, but that's not the important part. Check your email." I pulled up my inbox, finding dozens of new messages. Women sharing stories, asking for help, offering support. "It's happening everywhere," Regina continued. "They're all coming forward." Michaela perched on my desk, scrolling through social media. "It's trending! Damon's dupes!" "That's terrible," I said, but couldn't help smiling. "But effective," Michaela countered. "Look at these comments. Women are warning each other, sharing red flags, offering resources." My office door opened again as Sadie rushed in. "Emergency meeting at Alan's office, now." 20 minutes later, we sat around Alan's conference table. Me, Sadie, Regina, and representatives from 3 different women's advocacy groups. "The DA wants to make a deal," Alan announced, laying out documents. "No." Regina's response was immediate. "He doesn't get to walk away from this." "Not that kind of deal," Alan clarified. "They want him to name names. His entire network in exchange for a slightly reduced sentence." "How slightly?" I asked. 20 years instead of 30. Sadie whistled. "He'll never take it." "He already has." Alan slid a paper across the table. "This arrived an hour ago. Full confession, names, dates, bank accounts, everything." "Why?" Regina's voice shook. "Why now?" "Because," I realized, "he knows the leaked list is just the beginning. He's trying to control the narrative." Too late for that. Michaela turned her tablet around again, showing us more headlines. 3 of his partners have already been arrested. 2 more turned themselves in. "It's falling like dominoes," Sadie grinned. My phone buzzed with another message, this one from a number I didn't recognize. The text contained only a photo. Grandma Evelyn's garden, taken years ago. She was sitting on her favorite bench, smiling at the camera. "Look at the date," I showed Sadie. "This was taken the day she changed her will." "She knew," Regina said softly. "She knew this would happen." "Not just knew," Alan corrected. "Planned for it. That trust she set up, it's not just for financial support. It's designed to fund investigations, legal aid, counseling, everything needed to take down operations like Damon's." "Speaking of the trust," Sadie pulled out her laptop, "we've had over 100 applications since the list leaked, women from all over the country." I thought about Grandma's letter, her vision of helping others rebuild. "We're going to need a bigger office." "Already on it," Michaela said. "I've been talking to that women's center downtown. They have a whole floor available." "Perfect." I stood up, energized. "Let's turn this into something bigger than Damon ever imagined." "A support network?" Regina suggested. "More than that," I said. "A movement, education, prevention, recovery, everything we wished we'd had." "Evelyn's legacy," Sadie said suddenly. "That's what we should call it." The name felt right, a tribute to the woman who'd seen the bigger picture, who'd turned her own pain into purpose. "There's something else," Alan said, pulling out one final document. "Evelyn left instructions about this too. She wanted the foundation to be run by survivors, for survivors." Regina straightened in her chair. "We could help so many people." "We already are." Michaela showed us her tablet again. The hashtag had evolved. Damon's dupes had become one stronger together. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number, another woman reaching out for help. This time, I knew exactly what to say. "Welcome to the family," I typed back. "You're not alone anymore." Looking around the table at these women who'd become my strength, Sadie with her unwavering support, Regina with her newfound purpose, Michaela with her fierce loyalty, I felt Grandma Evelyn's presence stronger than ever. "Okay," I said, pulling out a notebook. "Let's get to work. These women need us." "No," Regina corrected gently. "We need each other. That's what makes this different from everything Damon tried to destroy." She was right. In trying to break us, he'd actually brought us together, creating something stronger than he could ever imagine. "Evelyn's legacy," I wrote at the top of the page, "where healing helps others heal." Grandma would have liked that. The courtroom fell silent as Damon was led in for sentencing. 3 months had passed since the list leaked, and everything had changed. He looked smaller somehow, his designer suit replaced by prison orange, his confident smirk gone. "All rise!" the bailiff called. I stood between Regina and Sarah, one of the women we'd helped through Evelyn's legacy. Behind us, dozens more filled the benches, a united front of survivors. "Before I deliver the sentence," the judge began, "would any of the victims like to make a final statement?" I hadn't planned to speak, but something in Damon's defeated posture propelled me forward. "Your Honor," I started, feeling every eye in the room. "I'm not here to talk about punishment. I'm here to talk about transformation." Damon's head snapped up, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. When this man entered our lives, he saw us as targets. Weak, vulnerable, easy marks. I gestured to the women behind me. But look at us now. Regina stood, then Sarah, then others, one by one, until the entire gallery was on its feet. In the past 3 months, Evelyn's legacy has helped over 200 women recover from financial abuse. We've launched education programs in 3 states. We've partnered with banks to create fraud prevention protocols. "Objection," Damon's lawyer interrupted. "This isn't relevant to sentencing." "I disagree," the judge replied. "Please continue, Ms. Ray." "The point is, Your Honor, what started as one man's scheme to destroy women has become a movement to empower them. Every dollar he stole, every life he tried to ruin, has been transformed into something stronger." "And the foundation?" the judge asked. "How is it funded?" I smiled, finally understanding the full brilliance of Grandma's plan. "With his money, Your Honor, every cent recovered from his accounts, every asset seized. It all goes back into helping his victims. And not just his victims, but anyone who's been financially abused." Damon stood abruptly. "You can't do that. That's my money." "No," Regina called from behind me. "It's blood money, and now it's being used for healing." The judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Duncan, sit down or you'll be removed." "This isn't over," he snarled. "You think you've won. I still have contacts. Resources you don't know about." "Actually," Alan stood, holding up a document, "we found those too. This morning's raids recovered another 12 million in hidden assets." Damon's face went pale. "That's impossible." "Your partner Marco turned over everything," I said quietly. "All your backup accounts, all your offshore holdings, everything." "Marco?" Damon's voice cracked. "But he was my—" "Best friend?" Regina finished. "Amazing how loyalty crumbles when faced with 30 years in prison." The judge cleared her throat. "If there's nothing else, I'm ready to deliver my sentence." "Wait," Damon called out desperately. "I can help you find more money, other operations like mine. Just, please." 25 years, the judge announced, cutting him off. "No possibility of parole for 20, and every asset you own will be liquidated to compensate your victims." As they led him away, Damon stopped in front of me. "I made you," he whispered. "No," I replied. "My grandmother made me. You just showed me how strong I could be." Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered around us. "Ms. Ray, what's next for Evelyn's legacy?" I looked at the women surrounding me. Not victims anymore, but survivors, leaders, warriors. "We're just getting started," Regina answered, stepping forward. "Next week, we launch our national hotline. The month after that, our first shelter opens." "And the money?" another reporter called out. "What happens when Damon's assets run out?" "They won't," Sadie joined us, holding up her phone. 3 more organizations just pledged matching funds. Corporations want to partner with us. This is bigger than Damon now. My phone buzzed, a message from Michaela at the new office. "You need to see this. Another ring just got exposed in Miami. Women asking for our help." "Excuse us," I told the reporters. "We have work to do." As we walked down the courthouse steps, Sarah caught my arm. "Thank you," she said softly, "for showing us we weren't alone." "We never were," I replied, thinking of Grandma Evelyn. "We just needed someone to remind us." Regina linked arms with us both. "So, Miami?" I grinned, feeling stronger than ever. "Miami, and then wherever else we're needed." Because that's what Grandma had really left us, not just money or property, but a purpose, a mission, A legacy of turning pain into power, betrayal into brotherhood, weakness into strength. "You know what this means?" Sadie called from ahead. "Road trip." And just like that, we were laughing, moving forward, ready for whatever came next. Because we weren't just survivors anymore. We were warriors, and we had work to do. "You're sure about this?" Sadie asked as we stood in Grandma Evelyn's garden. The autumn air was crisp, leaves dancing around our feet. "Completely." I handed her the deed to the house. "The foundation needs a proper home, somewhere that feels safe." Regina emerged from the back door, carrying a box of supplies. "The contractors can start renovations next week. Turn the upstairs into counseling offices, the basement into a training center." "And the garden?" Michaela called from where she was clearing fallen leaves. "Stays exactly as it is," I said firmly. "This was Grandma's sanctuary. Now it can be sanctuary for others." Sarah arrived with coffee for everyone, her eyes bright with excitement. "The first support group starts tonight. We already have 12 women signed up." "Make that 13, a voice called from the garden gate. We turned to see a woman standing there, clutching her purse tightly. I saw your website about financial abuse." Regina stepped forward immediately, her voice gentle. "Come in, you're safe here." As Regina led the woman inside, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. The woman staring back wasn't a victim, or even just a survivor. She was a warrior, just like Grandma had been. "Mail's here," Sadie announced, waving a stack of envelopes. "More donations, more volunteer applications, and... what's this?" She held up a letter with a familiar handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. "It's from Damon." Everyone froze. "Dear Presley," I read aloud. "I finally understand what your grandmother saw in me, a small man trying to make himself bigger by making others smaller. The money, the cons, the manipulation, it was all because I couldn't stand seeing strong women. But sitting here in my cell, watching news reports about Evelyn's legacy, I realize you've won in a way I never could. You built something. I only destroyed. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know, you were never nothing. I was." Silence fell over the garden. "Well," Michaela finally said, "that's unexpected." "It doesn't change anything," I folded the letter carefully. "But maybe it means we really did break the cycle." Inside, we could hear Regina talking with the new arrival, her voice carrying through the open window. "The first step is the hardest, but look around. Every woman here has stood where you're standing." "Even you?" the woman asked quietly. "Even me. And now I help others find their strength, just like Presley helped me find mine." My phone buzzed. Alan calling with updates about the Miami case. 3 more arrests, millions in recovered assets, dozens of women coming forward. "We need to expand," Sadie said, reading the message over my shoulder. "Other cities are asking for help setting up their own branches." "Then we'll help them," I replied. That's what Grandma would have done. Sarah emerged from the house with the new arrival, who looked slightly less frightened now. "Amanda's going to stay for the support group tonight," she announced. "Welcome to the family," I smiled. "Would you like to see the garden? This was my grandmother's special place." As we walked among the flowers, I told Amanda about Grandma Evelyn, about her strength and foresight, about how she turned her pain into purpose. "I never thought I'd feel strong again," Amanda admitted, touching a late-blooming rose. "Neither did I," Regina joined us. "But that's the beauty of this place. We heal by helping others heal." The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the garden. Women began arriving for the support group, each carrying their own story, their own pain, their own hope for healing. "Ready?" Sadie asked as we gathered in Grandma's living room, now transformed into a warm meeting space. I looked around at these faces, some familiar, some new, all part of something bigger than ourselves. Regina, who'd turned her betrayal into purpose. Sarah, who'd found her voice helping others. Amanda, taking her first steps toward healing. And somewhere, watching over us all, Grandma Evelyn, whose legacy lived on in every woman we helped. More than ready, I replied. Let's begin. Because that's what warriors do. We begin again and again and again. We turn our scars into strength, our pain into power, our endings into new beginnings. And somewhere in a prison cell, a small man was finally understanding just how big women could be when they stood together. But that wasn't our story anymore. Our story was here, in this garden, in this house, in these moments of healing and hope. Welcome, everyone, I said to the group. Who would like to share first? And as the stories began to flow, I felt Grandma's presence stronger than ever. Not in the past, but in the future we were building. One woman, one story, one moment of strength at a time. This was her real legacy, and it was just beginning.